I've got somebody else just trying to get in who can't get in. So bear with me while I send her another invitation. I think she's just sent me a message saying she needs help with the password.
Hi, Andy.
Tim.
Okay. Good. Well, I think I'm going to make a start and see what happens. Thank you all for coming. It's very exciting to have you here with us. I think we can all see your names, which is great. So at least we know who you are. We've got an idea of what Heather looks like as well. But she's got, you probably heard her say that she wasn't going to use video because she's got intermittent internet. It's really helpful for you to mute yourselves, I think probably, and then we don't get any background noise, and unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. Here's Elsa, who was trying to get in. Hello, Elsa. I'm pleased you got here. I'd just like you to put in the chat, I don't know if you know how to use the chat facility. I haven't got a phone, I've got it on my laptop. So on my laptop, if I move my mouse around on the screen, I've got some options, and one of them is chat. And if you could just say, perhaps in chat, who you are and where you're from, that would be really lovely for everybody to see. I'll do it as well, and then we know. I'm not very good at typing, but I've made an effort. Brilliant, thank you. Welcome to you all. Mike, I don't know where Frizzington is. Mike?
Yeah, Frizzington, right. It's outside of Whitehaven. It's between Cleaton Moor, and then if you went, then it's Frizzington, and then about 11 miles later on, it's Cockermouth.
Okay.
Almost on the west coast.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm better. Oh yes, I found it. I do have a map of the diocese on my desk that I rescued from Church House because I was realizing I didn't know where anything was. But I'm learning my way around bit by bit. Thank you. Okay, it's lovely to have you with us. Thank you all. Well, I'm going to share. I've done a PowerPoint just really so it helps me know what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen and share the PowerPoint, and hopefully send you into breakout rooms for some chat. Yeah. So. Can you all see my screen? If you just put a thumbs up. Yeah, or a nod. Yeah, okay, thank you. I can only see 3 people, so it needed those 3 people to nod there. But it was Gordon, I can see Gordon and Mike and Catherine. So you're the people, I can't see anyone else now. So I'm relying on you 3. This is what we're going to do this evening in an hour. I'm going to do a bit of welcome. I'm going to do an overview of the pathway. I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask me some questions. Breck Seaton is here from the Methodist Church. She runs the worship day with me, and she's going to give us a 20-minute taster of worship. So I've called it a taste of worship. Of course, we're not eating anything. I'm going to talk a little bit about lay ministry in Cumbria, ALTP Plus, which is the second year, and how to apply. So we've got a lot to do in an hour. I'm going to talk really quickly, but I really want you to ask questions. You can't ask a question that's stupid. And often, somebody that's brave enough to ask a question, there are at least 3 other people who have the same question in their heads and are too shy to ask it. That always happens. So please, if you've got a question, be brave enough to ask it, because it might not just help you, it might help other people as well that have the same thing. I always have the problem when I'm explaining things that it's really clear in my head, because I know it very well now, and I just assume that that's obvious. So if I'm saying things where I've jumped, it's because I think it's obvious, but I've really got to admit before we begin that I'm sometimes wrong. Don't let my husband hear me saying that though. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the, so I was going to put you into breakout groups to start with. Those of you for whom this is a new thing, that'll be interesting. And I'd like you in your breakout groups. So just so you've got a chance to speak, because it's really hard to speak when there's 25 people here. Oh, do you know, it stopped giving me the option. Oh yeah. And I'd like you just to talk to each other about what it is you're hoping to get from this evening and what question you've come with. So I do know why some of you are here. Some of you have already signed up for the course. Some of you are thinking about it. Some of you, I suspect, are here in order to encourage other people to think about it. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that in your group, and any question, or maybe together you can formulate a question that you'd like to have. I'm only going to do this for about 3 minutes, so it's really fast. It is, if you've not done this before, it's a bit like Alice Through the Looking Glass, where you just catapulted somewhere else. Okay. I make it 1942. You're going to come back in 3 minutes. Okay, so you should be moving now into breakout rooms. Good, welcome back. As you didn't come back until the very last second, I took it that you had plenty to say to each other in those few minutes. If you did formulate some questions, can you put them in the chat? And if I'll have a look at them, I'll read them through when Breck's doing the worship stuff, and I'll make sure I answer them after that. Is that okay? So if you can be putting them into the chat, I'll make sure that they get answered, and then you can ask them verbally later on. I'll give you an opportunity to. Okay, I'm going to do the share again and go back to my presentation. So now the only people I can see are Valerie and Kate and Judith. I'm just telling you that. So I'm relying on you if things are going terribly wrong to wave at me or whatever. Who is this pathway for? It's trying to do two things at once. We're trying to do two things at once with this pathway. It's for those people who are beginning to discern their vocation or ministry within a church or pioneer context. So it's people at the beginning who are thinking, I want to do a little bit more, but I don't know what it is, or I'd kind of like to do that, but I don't know how. And the second group of people are those who are already involved in church ministry who wish to consolidate their experience. So you can hear there's two things that are not exactly the same, but I think the course is flexible enough for both those sets of people. So it's something about extending what you're doing, consolidating what you know, and also for some people growing in confidence, they'll also realize that they know more than they think. So there's two sets of kinds of people, I think. What we say is it's for those joining in the mission of the church, being more involved in ministry inside or outside the church building and community, learning about how to lead worship, how the church cares for people, about how being welcoming and becoming more confident in hearing God's call. We do think that at the end of the first year, there'll be a time to think about what might be next. We've run the program for a year. This year, we've only had 5 people on it in this first year, which was okay because it was a bit of a pilot. So we've learned some stuff and changed some things. And I had a conversation, I've had a conversation in June with everybody that's on the program, and they're all going to do different things at the end of the first year. So some are really clear that their call is to read a ministry. One person is considering ordained ministry now. The purpose of it is not really to create vicars, although that's a really nice side effect. Just need to flag that up to you. If you do this, you're not necessarily going to become a vicar, which might be a relief to you. So they were the 2 things. And a couple of people are really still uncertain and they missed a couple of sessions. So they're going to keep going with their mentor. I'll talk about the mentor in a minute. And they're going to catch up on the sessions they've missed, keep their learning journal and see what happens after another year. So that's fine. I've been really flexible about that. One person is sure, she's always been sure she wants to be an authorised lay minister, and she's going to do what she needs to do in this second year in order to be authorised by the bishop for lay ministry. So can you hear that different set of things that people are doing? More, some people are more certain than others, but they've really learned together on the programme. So these are the aims and objectives. I really just want to show you that we've got them because I think they're pretty similar to what I've just shown you already. Course is based around 6 pillars, and we think these are really important pillars. One is mission and outreach. One is pastoral care and ministry. One is worship, welcome and hospitality, Christian tradition, and God for all. So we based the whole program around those 6. Some of them will be really obvious to you. Mission and outreach is a bit obvious, pastoral care, worship, Welcome and hospitality, that's a really interesting one. So that's about how we can be as welcoming and as hospitable as we can. So learn some things about that. Breck Seaton's colleague, also Methodist trainer, Christy, comes to lead that. Christian tradition, I got to do that this year. So it's basically the whole of the Bible and the whole of Christian doctrine in 2 hours, which takes some doing. I'm assuming you know about the Bible and you know a bit about Christianity before you begin, because you're not going to learn it much in 2 hours. But it was an interesting session. God for All is really Cumbrian, and it talks about what the God for All, what we're doing in God for All. Of course, the vision refresh is just about upon us, and that'll change as the year goes on. But they're the 6 pillars. So using those 6 pillars, we split it into 6 sessions. So the course has 6 sessions where we meet. There are 3 full study days. I've got the dates here as well. Mission and outreaches, and this is looks like in random order. I've not got them in date order. I've got them in pillar order. Mission and outreach is in January. Pastoral care and ministry is in July, the beginning of July. That's the last one, and worship is the 7th of November. There are 3 twilight sessions, which I'm going to run this year on Zoom. I set them up so there were none in the winter, so we didn't have to travel. But actually, because everybody's got so good at Zoom, I've thought we'll do much better to do this. So for this year, and we'll review it at the end of the year, these 3 evenings are going to be on Zoom. Those of you that live down on the West Coast, those of you in Gosforth or Barrow or Ulverston are probably relieved about that. It's a long way to drive for a 2-hour session. But I do want us to meet together sometimes, because I think you'll make friends with other people on the course. You'll meet people in the same position as you. And I think those 3 days together in person will be really important. But I think the 3 others on Zoom will work as well. So the first one's Tuesday, the 8th of September. That's God for All, and Mike Talbot is doing that. And then he forgot his name, don't tell him. He's going to come talk about God for All with us. So that's what it looks like. So it's not that's really light then. I really hope the days will be face to face by the 7th of November. Surely we can meet face to face, and they will be in Penrith in Church House. If all 20 of you sign up for this program, it may be that I might be able to run some sessions. There might be enough people to justify it that I run some sessions in the south of the county as well, just to give people an opportunity not to have to travel so far. So we'll just see how that goes. Does anyone have any questions about that aspect of it? If you do, you'd have to unmute and speak, because I can't see many people. People I can see are shaking their heads. And there's a set of cards. The cards are also around the themes, the 6 themes, the 6 pillars. And you do a card a month. So you can see that there's 2 cards for each of the pillars. And you're expected to work through the cards at 1 a month. And they're really interesting, different things to do. And I'm going to show you them. I'm going to come off my screen share, and I'm going to show you these cards. I think this is the genius of the program. Emma Richardson on the God for All team designed these. Anyone that's come across Emma will know her to be creative. Is Zoom turning that round the right way so you can see it? Because it's on reverse on my screen, so it always makes me a bit confused.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's small to see though. Because you
okay. So this is the first one. This is a God for All card. Why God for All? And it said, this month, please engage with one of the responses below. And there's always a choice of responses. One of them is prayerful. One of them is out and about. One of them is reflection. one of them is missional, and one of them is children and young people. So on this one, the prayerful one is use the God for all prayer in your daily prayer time this month. What is God saying to you through this? Out and about is attend a mission community steering group or council meeting and see how God for all is being worked out in your area. If this is something you already do, then visit a neighbouring mission community meeting.
If you go onto speaker view, you'll be able to see them.
Oh yeah, probably.
Because Alison will then fill most of the screen. People can do it individually.
Yeah, they can. I'll put that back up in case people want to do that. Thank you, Chris. So you can hear they're not huge things to do, but they are a bit challenging. I'm not going to go through all the cards because we will be here forever. Some of you might be children and young people focused, and I think what we'd say is don't do the children and young people one for all 12 cards. I think Sue in particular that might be her inclination. But some of you just might not be children and young people focused, and I'd say, well, give it a go. Do at least one of them, and get outside your comfort zone. So can you hear it? If you were to get in touch with me or your mentor and say, I absolutely cannot do this thing, that would be fine. Because there's a choice, you can see the choice of 5 things on each of the cards. There's some resource cards as well to go with them. There's a nice pack. This looks like I've got the tidiest desk in the world, and you need to know that everything I've touched in the last week is on here. And these are the resource cards. So this gives you some help with finding the stuff you need to do these. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, and then I know I'm on track. So that's 1 card a month. So we're presuming the program takes a full year, September to September. We won't give you the cards until we know that you've got an enhanced DBS. I just want to say that's slowed some people down this year, but because some of the cards tell you to go out into schools and to go out and do some things that are about leadership, we really have to know that all that safeguarding stuff in place. Some of you will have it all in place already. You work through the cards with a mentor, so everybody's matched with a personal mentor. I've had a lovely week this week where I've written to all the readers and some lay ministers. So we've got lots of readers and lay ministers. I really wanted the mentors to be lay people rather than ordained people. So I'm really hoping that happens. So you'll all get a personal mentor who I hope won't live too far away from you. You'll meet with a mentor, you'll meet with them once to begin with, and then 4 times over the year. And you'll reflect on what you've been doing with cards, and what you've been learning about God, about your context, about yourself, and how you've been doing your learning journal. I'm coming to the learning journal. And then at the end of the first year, the mentor will engage with the discernment process about what might be next for you. So the cards are kind of to work on by yourself, but you've got someone to work with who is the mentor. I'll be at every session. I'll be at all 6 of the sessions, although I've invited somebody to come and lead all of them. So I'll not be the leader, I'll not be the teacher on them necessarily. Although I've taught more than I'd expected to this year because of lockdown and my colleagues being furloughed. But I will be at each session, and I'm hoping then that I'll have a catch up with you. If you've got any questions for me, I'll be available for you. Okay, so you've got a good lot of support throughout this. For some people it'll be easier than for others, I think, this whole thing. The assessment is by portfolio, but I don't really want to use the word assessment. I think it's about what you produce at the end of it. So it's not essay driven, but somehow you think about what you've been learning. And one of them is your learning journal. So we want you to put in your portfolio at least a learning journal and one book review. So the only bit of kind of more formal writing we ask you to do in the whole year is that you read a book and write about it. It can be as long as you want it to be. There's some advice that I've written some advice on writing a book review. We've got a little library in Church House on the ground floor now. We're not allowed to call it a library. You didn't hear me, Chris. It's a learning resource. It's a learning resource centre with shelves of books that just happen to look a bit like a library. There's some good books to read, and as I get to know you, I can probably begin to recommend something that I think will either challenge you or suit you. You may also put in your portfolio pictures of things you've been doing in response to the cards, other literature which describes events or services you've been involved in, or maybe a report from another lay person in your church about how they think you're developing. So you can be in charge of your portfolio, really. The learning journal, I don't know if you were like me when you were at school and left everything to the last minute. So, you know, I've got an essay to write. You might have children that have done this, and you watch them in despair as the night before it's due in, they write it. The learning journal won't work like that, because it's about how you're developing. So I just kind of want to flag that up. The learning journal needs to be about a process that happens over the year, and maybe it's nice to buy a nice notebook and you know, keep a record. I'd quite like to see it. It might be that your mentor wants to work in it with you, and I'd quite like to see it at some stage. But I'm not going to mark it. But you know, and if you really didn't want me to see it, that would be okay. If I know that you've been doing it. Is that all right? And it might just be that you want to collect other things as evidence to show. It also shows how you're developing. When you're learning things, especially this sort of learning, it's really easy not to see yourself developing because it happens gradually, and this is a good record of that. This is what you might put in a learning journal. This stuff's on the website, and I'm not going to go through it because we're going to run out of time. So I'm going to read your questions, and I'm going to hand over to Breck. Breck, I probably need to make you a co-host, don't I? So
well, I think you can launch the poll actually, so I think I'm all right. I think I'm doing everything.
And have you got PowerPoint?
No.
You're just going to speak? Okay.
So welcome everybody. I'm Breck. I work for the Methodist Connectional team based in Kendal, part of a team of 9 of us in the Northwest region. So we cover the Isle of Man and right down to Chester and Stoke. Alton Towers is about the end of our patch, and then up through Cumbria. So it's nice to be with you, and we've been working with Alison and forward to that with Emma Richardson. So it's nice to be here. So this is just a little taster of the worship day, which is a full day that Alison and I led together last year. What we're doing now isn't particularly what we might do on the day, but it's a taste of some of the conversations that we might have. So I thought it might be quite interesting just to do a quick quiz, because it's a bit hard for everybody to talk. 2 of the answers are right and wrong, and 2 are kind of preferences. The 2 that are right and wrong are Methodist things, because I thought there'd be quite a lot of Anglicans here. So as we're an ecumenical county, I'd just see whether you know anything about the Methodist Church or not, because they're the kind of conversations that are enabled by joint working, by the partnership that we've got together. And because we're an ecumenical county, and if you went into leading worship in some way following the ALTP, then understanding each other's denominations is kind of a little bit important, really. If we're going to be truly ecumenical and welcoming. So there's only 4 questions. It won't tell us who said what, so we won't know who's got them right or wrong. We won't know who's got the preferences, but it's just a bit of kind of to get us thinking a bit. So if you just want to launch that poll for me, Alison, that'd be great.
I've never done this before. I'm frightened it doesn't work.
It will do. So you just have to click one answer for each of the 4 questions, and then you press submit. So you just scroll through, click it, and we'll see. I won't read the questions out, you can do that. And you'll have to keep track, Alison, of who's, when everybody's done it. We'll say on your thing, Alison, how many people have clicked submit. But as host, it won't let you do it. So you don't get to participate, I don't think.
No, I don't. I can see that 21% of people have voted.
So when everyone's clicked submit, then you can share the poll results, and we'll see what we thought. Stick your hand up if you're struggling with it. Edward is. Come off mute.
I've done it. When I click on submit, it just doesn't submit.
Oh, how strange. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It must
Have
be
you
me.
scrolled down to get to the other questions?
Have you done all 4 questions? You have to scroll.
Oh, no. No, thank you.
Yeah.
You.
I want to answer more than one, tick more than one in each, in some of the
Yeah, no, I
worship,
set it up that
section.
you weren't allowed to do that. I could have set it up. I knew I could have set it up so you could have more than one.
If you
That was harsh.
want to use Zoom to do a poll so you get multiple choice, you've got to do different questions. So if some are just one answer and some are multiple choice, you've got to do 2 polls. So you can't have some answers that are just one and some that are multiple choice. So I just went for one answer because we haven't got much time.
Who reads the names of hymn books?
Oh, well, you'll be surprised. You'll find out in a minute.
If you're a local preacher, you see, or you're invited to preach in the Methodist church, you might not know which book it is, let alone have a copy of it. Because, of course, in the Methodist church, a local preacher takes the whole service, so usually they're responsible for the whole service. They're responsible for the whole service, and they usually plan the whole service. So from the hymns to the readings, to the lectionary readings, to preaching, to the prayers. And they might invite people to take part in that, but the local preacher is responsible for it, if it's not a minister-led service, which is slightly different to the reader role. Okay, are we there, Alison? Can we share the...
100% voted?
Yeah, so if you share the poll, we can all see what people said. Okay, so the first one, well, that's quite impressive. 53% got it right. So this is one of the most important prayers in the Methodist Church, in the Methodist tradition. And usually the first Sunday in New Year in January, we say what's called the covenant prayer. And it begins with the line, "I am no longer my own, but yours." It's a beautiful prayer, so if you've not come across it, I won't share it now, but Google it and find it. So that's quite important if you're preaching in January in Methodist Church. Okay, and this is just a question to see who prefers what. And you can see that everybody's different. So the New Revised Standard Version, which is reportedly the most accurate translation that we have, is often used by local preachers, certainly in the initial reading. And Alison was telling me that the Living Bible is the one that's used most in Anglican churches. Is that right, Alison?
The New Revised Standard Version is the one that the Church of England recommends. So that's the one we will most often find in our churches.
Okay. But of course, we all use different versions of the Bible for different things. And depending what we're reading, if we're reading for ourselves. So it's just interesting to see what's out there. And of course, there's a whole load of other translations as well that we could look at. Very interesting that 79% would be drawn most to family communion. If it was more of a mixed denominational grouping, it'd be interesting to see would that be different or not, with just some that are other. So I was another. I quite like the Quaker worship. I really appreciate quiet space and reflective space in my worship. And the most recent authorised hymn book in the Methodist Church is Singing the Faith. So if you came to a Methodist church, most of them would have Singing the Faith. And the book before that came out, I think it stopped being used a couple of years ago by most churches, was Hymns and Psalms. The Methodist hymn book's quite an old one. Do you just want to close the poll for us, Alison?
Yeah, I was very impressed how many people knew Singing the Faith. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting because I wouldn't know a lot of questions about the Anglican Church, although I grew up in an Anglican church, but things move on. So it's just very interesting. So the worship day itself is a day to explore things like how worship's ordered. So I don't know whether you've ever picked this up, unless you're a reader already or a preacher in some way. There's a way that we order worship typically. And so we share some of that and the reasons for it. We had a very interesting conversation about why that was and could we change the order. And that might depend on your tradition and your denomination. We look at different styles of worship. We look about the differences and the uniqueness of each of our denominations and what's common between us. And we have quite a lot of conversation around leading prayers in worship. So we focus quite a lot of the day on prayer. So what I thought I'd do is just to put you into breakout groups, and I've got 3 questions for you. And I'm going to put them in the chat. So when you get into your breakout room, if you look in the chat, you'll have the questions there. So you don't need to write them down first. I'll just read them out to you. What are the different ways in which we can pray? What is unique to our own denomination in worship? And what is common across our denominations in worship? I spelled that wrong. You'll see what I mean. So I'll just stick them into chat for you. And what I would say is we haven't got long. So I would say just choose one as a group, and you've got about 6 minutes. Is that all right, Alison? Or do you want less time? About 6 minutes just to discuss one of those questions. 5 minutes, Alison says. And then we'll come back. We won't have much time for feedback. On the day, we'd have great conversation around some of these questions. We won't have that today, but it will just give you a little flavour of some of the things you might discuss.
Right. I'm sending you now. Yeah. Well, welcome back. Clearly, you hadn't finished that because you've all just been thrown back into here by Zoom rather than coming of your own free will. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry to end a conversation in the midst. But one of the things I dislike most about Zoom is I can't figure out what's happening in the breakout rooms. In real life, you can kind of hear, you know, listen in on what's going on. So I hope that was useful. Breck, do you want to say something else?
Just to finish off, it'd be lovely to hear some of the conversations you've had, but there's just not the capacity tonight. So I hope they were fruitful conversations. But the day itself is quite varied, but we do look quite a lot at prayer and explore things like prayer stations, a little bit of messy church, some of the pioneering stuff. So it's a good day. There's some good conversation, and it draws on your wisdom as well as the wisdom and experience of Alison and I, because you all bring a huge amount with you. And some of you will have a lot of experience in some of these areas, and some will be exploring. And sometimes people that haven't got the experience in worship or worship leading see things that those of us that have led worship for many years don't spot anymore. And they're really important conversations to have. So it's about drawing everybody together and sharing together.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you very much, Breck, for coming along at quite a short notice this evening. I thought, as I'd said, open evening, I'd give you a little bit of a taste of what you might experience on the course much faster than usual. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk really fast for the next 8 minutes. I'm really sorry. I thought I was talking fast before. Oh, can you see? Have I shared my screen?
No.
No, I just realised I hadn't done that. So I'm looking at my screen and wondering. There we are. Okay. Lay ministry in Cumbria, we're beginning to talk about authorised and recognised lay ministers. I don't know that all of you are Anglicans, and if any of you are Methodists, we're working with Breck and James Tebber and the Methodists to work out what this will look like for Methodists. But for Anglicans, we ask that lay ministers are baptised and confirmed, or safely recruited, regular worshipper and communicant in your home church, rooted and grounded in your local community, widely known and trusted by a range of people, with an appropriate presence, willing to engage in continuing development, prepared to work under the supervision of your incumbent, and alongside licensed colleagues, willing to work within the boundaries of a working agreement. So before you became either a recognised or authorised lay minister, would you ask you to set up a working agreement with the incumbent or somebody, you know, or mission community leader, and you need to be commended and approved by your PCC. A lot of these things are reflected in the application process. So that's why the application process is so complicated, because this may lead to you becoming a lay minister. On the left, I've put too much information on this screen. On the left, I talk about recognised lay ministers, and on the right, authorised lay ministers. Recognised lay ministers, at the end of your first year, you may choose just to say, okay, I've done enough, I've learned what I want to learn, and I'll be recognised locally as a lay minister. And that would be a recognised lay minister for worship, pastoral, pioneer, children, youth and messy, fresh expressions or chaplaincy. So it's the same list for recognised as authorised, and it would be locally recognised, okay, at the end of your first year. That's that part of that discernment conversation that happens between your mentor and me, and probably your incumbent and you. It's very much an assistant role. Authorised lay ministers would need to do a second year of training in order to be authorised. We could call the second year ALTP plus. And the authorisation is from the bishop and is reviewed every 5 years. I think, of course I'm going to say this because I'm really flagging this up in the diocese at the moment, but I think it's really important to have more authorised lay ministers. Authorisation gives you protection, so that whatever you're doing it with the permission of the bishop, and if anyone complains about you, you've got the backing of the diocese. Authorisation also allows you to do things. And if anyone were to say, I don't know why Joe Bloggs is doing that, you can say, Joe Bloggs can say, well, the bishop has given me permission to do this. And it's less reliant on the goodwill of your incumbent. So I suspect all of you will be here because you've got good incumbents, good vicars in place that are encouraging. But we all know that, we all know that not everybody's got encouraging because somebody's shaking their head there. And to be an authorised lay minister kind of skirts around that because the bishop's given you permission to do this, not just the vicar. So so I really want to commend to you, those of you that are doing things already. I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of people who say, yeah, but I don't need to do this. And I kind of think that to be an authorised lay minister just gives you quite a lot of support. I'm going to talk about what it means, what you need to do to get that, which is ALTP. We're calling it ALTP Plus, which is the second year. And you continue to work with, it's going a bit deeper into one area, and it's a bit more tailor-made. You'll be expected to continue to work with your mentor and to continue to keep a learning journal. So we just know that you're still making progress. If the relationship with the mentor hasn't worked, of course, we'll find you a different mentor at that stage. 6 areas of ministry, and there's a little course for you to do in each area, for each area, that would enable you to get the ALTP Plus to finish that year. It won't take a whole year. What will take a year is working with your mentor, and hopefully by that stage being able to do a little bit more in church or in your fresh expression than you're doing already. So for example, the worship leaders course is a 2 days, an 8-hour course. The pastoral care module, which you would do alongside our ordinands, is 20 hours. So it's 1 day and 7 evenings, and various things. We haven't written the chaplaincy one yet, but that's coming. So that's what you would need to do for authorised lay ministry. I'm putting my home address on here in the how to apply. I can see someone's asked a question, I just can't see, but maybe Breck will read it to me.
Yeah, so the question is, I was just replying to actually, does worship leading in second year authorise preaching? So no. Let me just answer from a Methodist perspective.
No, okay. Are the Methodists here?
I don't think there are, but I think it's important because if you talk to Methodists, then it's still part of the thing. So the Methodist Church, you would have, at the moment, you would have to do the Methodist local preaching course to be a local preacher, and it's something that we need to work on and work with our connection to see where the parallels are. And
this course won't. Yeah, this course won't allow you to be to preach. If you want to preach, you need to train to be a reader. So that's the this course.
You might choose at the end of the first year. You might choose not to take one of the options for ALTP Plus, but it might be you then go, well, it's the reader course that I need to do, and you become a reader through the reader. So, right, yeah. So you can stop at the end of year 1 if you've discerned a certain pathway, and it might not be ALTP Plus, it might be something else. And this gives the flexibility for that, within whichever denomination. So the Methodists are much further behind in this, in terms of authorised local preachers, and we've just missed it to our conference because it was all on Zoom. So we're now delayed by another year in where we can go. But we're hoping that Methodists might join you because it's an exploration, and then people can specialise into either into their denominations if that's what's needed. Or onto the courses that Alison's just said.
Lovely, yeah, thank you. Anybody can preach 6 times a year, but that's anybody, but this isn't a preaching. We're not giving you enough Bible input for it to be a preaching course. That's basically what it is. That's why not. We really want you to do much more Bible work. That's been on the screen. My address has been on screen a long time. It's there because Church House is closed, and I'm going to ask you to apply by letter, but Church House is closed. So So I don't know where they're going. I've had David Robbins' application, and that's the only one I've had. So maybe no one else has applied yet. Maybe they've all gone somewhere. So if when you've done the application form, if you can send it to me at home, I know I've got it and it's not in some weird place. You've all got my email address, so you can always email me. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one because that's been up for ages now. Oh, sorry, I think I've gone backwards. You'll need to apply. I'm sorry, I'm over 8:30 now. You'll need the support of the local church and church leader, and it could have been discussed and agreed by your PCC. That's a slightly different process for Methodist. You'll have completed C0 and C1 safeguarding training, and there's some links to get onto that. You should have booked onto or completed a leadership safeguarding. This used to be level 2 and it's changed. So if you've got that already and it's still in date, that's great. There won't be any face-to-face ones coming up. We were hoping to have one in September, but we're hoping that some might be online. So I'm just waiting to hear from Charles, our safeguarding officer, about how they're going to be delivered. Isabel Ford, that's Isabel.Ford, is a really good person to contact about safeguarding. So she manages the safeguarding for the Diocese of Carlisle. You'll have an enhanced DBS certificate, and you should have applied for that through the diocese. So even if you've got one already, we need one that you've done through the diocese. You might have one already. You could contact Isabel.Ford at carlislediocese.org.uk. I've just seen an email today to say that Isabel didn't know about that. We're in a state of flux because nobody's actually in church house, and half of our admin staff are furloughed. So our administrator, Steve, might be a good person to get in touch with. He's admin at cumbriachristianlearning.org.uk. And Steve can definitely answer your question, but I'll get in touch with Isabel tomorrow anyway. That looks like a lot of safeguarding stuff. I hope you're not put off by it. I hope you realise that it's really important for us as a diocese, as a church, as our reputation, that we're really hot on this. So it is about safeguarding people. We need to know that people taking positions of leadership are safe, and we also need to know that the church's reputation is protected. There's 2 parts. They're both on the website. You can find them on the God for All website. I've stopped being able to find God for All for search, but if you do a search on God for All, ALTP, you'll find links to get there, and all this stuff is and documents on there. You need to complete part A and send it in, and part B is completed by your church leader, and they'll need to be able to give them the date of the meeting which agreed your church's support for your participation. Now, that's really tricky because there's people not having PCCs at the moment, and it's summer. But if they were to give a date when they're expecting to discuss it, that would be fine at this stage. That would be good enough that we think that your church leader says, yes, I'm in support of this, and we're expecting it to be agreed on this date. Yeah. And there we are. I'm sorry I've run over. Yeah, that's fine, Francis. I can see your question. I think if he says that it's going to be discussed at the PCC, that's probably good enough. So can you pass that on to him? Because I appreciate
it. Oh, thank you.
I appreciate PCCs that have been all over the place, haven't they, in the last few months? So that's a really tricky thing. It's so, if you're going to be in lay ministry in your church, we need to know that they're going to accept that, really. So the PCC really need to agree. Has anyone got any questions? I'm really sorry I've overrun. We started 5 minutes late, so it has taken an hour. I've been speaking really quick. I've bombarded you with masses of information. I know that it is all on the website. But if you've got any questions, please do ask away.
Sorry, Alison, I've got to have to leave now, but thank you anyway. That's brilliant.
That's fine. Thank you, David.
I've got a question, Alison. I have actually got like a professional DBS, enhanced one, because I work within a school. I am applying for because I know, you know, who we meet are, you know, different, are children and perhaps some vulnerable adults. But if my DBS hasn't come through, will I be able to start or not? If it hasn't come through by September?
Yeah, you'll
Okay.
be able to start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that you've got one already. I knew that you would have one already. But it has to be a diocese one. But it takes
no, that's no problem. I just thought, would it hold me back if I didn't have the diocesan one through? That's lovely. Thank you.
Has anyone else got any questions for now?
When you say all the information is on the website, does that include your PowerPoint?
Oh no, it doesn't include my PowerPoint. I know.
Because that was clear.
The PowerPoint.
Yes, that was clear as anything. I can, in my simple mind, I can follow that.
Oh, thank you very much, Sue. I'm really flattered by that. Knowing you're a teacher, in your heart. I can't put it on the website. I mean, it's just because all our staff are furloughed and I haven't got access to the website. But I can email it to you all. Would that be all right?
Yes,
I've got
please.
a list of emails, so I'll email it to everyone that's been here. With apologies that I can't. It might be that someone can put it on the website eventually.
The other question is, I came from a different tradition, therefore I have been baptized by immersion, but I have not been confirmed. So how do I go about that?
That's an interesting one. Because we, sorry, I've got a whole theological debate in my head there that I'm going to try and summarize. Because we say that confirmation confirms the baptism promises that were made on your behalf, and it makes you a kind of communicant member of the Church of England then. But you are a communicant member, but through full immersion baptism. I shall ask Cameron. Bishop,
right, thank you.
He's the person I go to ask all these tricky questions. That's a tricky question.
Sorry, I'm a nuisance.
No, not a nuisance at all. Yeah, how interesting. I don't know the answer, just don't know. I would have thought it would be okay.
I have always said that that is not, as far as I'm concerned, that's not necessary because of how my baptism was done.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I came unstuck because I told the Lord I didn't want to do something, and said, well, I want you to do that. And I said, well, that means I've got to be confirmed, and I don't want to be. And he said, now you're putting obstacles in the way.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to remove the obstacles if they're necessary.
We'll see. It might have to be confirmed. That would be very exciting.
No, it wouldn't.
I'll check it out with Cameron. I don't want to put obstacles in your way either.
It would be very embarrassing, I think.
You can do these things privately, you know. It doesn't have to be.
Oh, well, that's
not like
all right.
when you're 12 and there's a party. I'll find out. I'll let you know soon.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No, okay. Well, if you think of some, it's really hard in a Zoom meeting with people you haven't seen before to speak. I really appreciate that. But if you do have questions you want to ask me, please do get in touch with me. do you know my, well, you can see my name. It's Alison Fenton, so it's Alison.Fenton. I've got 2 L's. That's the thing you have to remember.
It is.
carlislediocese.org.uk. Did you try it with 1 L, Sue?
I did.
And what happened?
Well, it just came back saying
Oh,
it couldn't be delivered.
You've got to remember I've got 2 L's, yeah. So should we pray before we go? And we can go. So we thank you, Father God, for this day. Thank you for the sunshine today. And we thank you for this meeting this evening. We ask your blessing upon all those that have been here. We ask your blessing on their churches, on their friends, on their communities, and on their ministry. And we pray, Lord, that your Holy Spirit will work in us and through us for the flourishing of your church, that your kingdom might come on earth as in heaven. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
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 Thank you all. Thanks for coming. I'm going to do the Zoom wave.
Nice to meet you.
Look
Thank you
forward to
now.
meeting you all
Nice
again
to meet you
properly
all.
one day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
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 Bye, Valerie's iPad. You're the last to go.
Bye, Alison. Bye.
Was that all right? Did you manage Zoom all right,
Super.
Valerie?
I did, yes, first time. Thank you.
It's great, isn't it?
It
You know,
is. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't done it before.
no, well, that's what I hadn't done it before lockdown, and I kind of think, wow, I don't know why I've spent half my life driving around Cumbria.
Well, that's right. Yeah, we can all communicate like this. Just a different way of living, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh,
Much
nice
better
to
for
meet
the
you, Alison.
environment. Yes, and nice to meet
Yes,
you as well.
and thank
Valerie.
you. Really informative. You've
Oh,
really
I'm
helped
really pleased.
encouraging. Yeah,
Good,
that's
good.
super. Yeah,
Thanks
thanks
a lot.
ever so much.
Okay. Bye,
Bye,
then.
Alison.
Bye.
Bye.